Good afternoon, everybody. Happy that you're joining us here. We have Scott Josuweit joining us. We'll get into what he does here in a second. We'll just give everybody a few minutes to hop in, sit down, get
You're,
something.
you're one of the few people that know how to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah, so I've known you for a long time.
A little bit. We
Yeah,
go way back.
way back when we were young warthogs. Now, how long have we known each other? Like 5, 6, 7 years, maybe longer. Probably longer.
Uh, 2014, I think, or 15 was probably when we connected. So
Yeah, so yeah, 7, 8 years. Nice. Cool. Well, let's dive in. So, guys, we have, like I said, we have Scott here with us. Scott wears a lot of hats. He does coaching. He does his own wedding photography studio. He has a group on Facebook that talks about different ways to optimize your business, and that's actually why we have him here today. But Scott, what else do you want to share about yourself before we dive in?
sure. I feel like something that needs to be said is I actually used to be a teacher. I taught seventh grade special ed math for 10 years. Got my master's in it. Was ready to head in for my doctorate and left before I got into all that there. So teaching is literally in my core. It's what I've was intending to do for the rest of my life, and then
Mm-hmm.
photography took over. But now I get to combine my two favorite things in the world, photography and coaching, together into one. And yeah, it's been wonderful. And it's just, I love getting to see photographers' eyes kind of light up when they're like, oh, that's why this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And getting to hopefully get them the results a lot faster and avoiding those
Yeah.
struggles and pains.
Yeah. Where is your studio based?
I am in York, Pennsylvania, the middle of nowhere. Also, like you.
Yeah. I'm not quite into Pennsylvania. I'm not quite as far out as you are, but I'm right between Philadelphia and Lancaster, so we're on opposite sides of Lancaster, which is cool. But
Yep.
uh, yeah, so guys, like I said, we're talking to Scott today just about different ways we can optimize our business. So over the course of the last few months, we do different lives. We'll have on different people that offer software, different products, different things. But Scott's going to talk about three different things that you can optimize in your business right now, or maybe more. I don't know, but I told him to come up with three that you can optimize in your business right now that won't cost you anything or maybe very little, and it's all stuff that will have impact results on your business moving forward. It's not photography related per se. It's not this shooting style, this technique. It's the business side. So Scott, jump right in. Why don't you share all three topics, and then we'll get into the first one.
Sure thing. So obviously there could be certainly way more than three, but I try to keep the main three just to kind of give you guys some actionable items just to start on right away. So number one would be your CRM. Meaning your client relationship manager. So that might be Honeybook, Dubsado, Tave, Sprout Studio, one of those different
Mm-hmm.
things. I'm assuming most of you, if you're probably watching this, you probably have one. If you don't, we'll get into more of that in a little bit. Number two would be your post production workflow, because obviously we're in the heart of wedding season. We want to make sure we're as efficient as possible. We'll talk about how we can do that. And then number three would be Instagram, which I know so many people are so bent out of shape over about all the new updates. And yes, they do suck, but also Instagram still works. I know we just had a common friend who just booked a
Mm-hmm.
$16,000 wedding from it. Like it still works. There's still tips and tricks to make it easier for you,
Right.
and we'll get to dive into that too then.
Awesome. So
So
let's jump into
I guess that's
CRMs. Yeah.
yeah. So CRMs. I mean, people are like, do I really need one? I mean, if you're doing any type of business at all, I really, really do think and advise that you have one. That way, you're not spending so much time doing these tasks manually. Your job is to be the CEO of your business, not to be the janitor who's going through the menial tasks day to day. That's somebody else can handle that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to hire someone like an actual person on, a studio management system can kind of do that for you in a lot of ways, which means having email templates, having automations work, all these things that you shouldn't have to be trying to think about and worry about on a day to day basis. These things should just be happening kind of in the background to educate your clients, to inform them about updates on things, and just to make sure that you are consistent and giving your clients a consistent experience from one to the next. because that's one of the number one things I hear from our clients is, of course, our photos matter, but the experience overall really paints a really big
Mm-hmm.
picture for them. And if they are basically getting random emails or not understanding when their photos are coming or how to access different things that when they're working with you, these are all going to be things that kind of lead to kind of a negative experience in their eyes. But
Mm-hmm.
these are things that can all be prevented. So the
Right.
number one thing I would advise you to do, even if you don't have a CRM, is just write down. This means not using a computer, like pen and paper. Write down your personalized workflow of like, what do you do for each and every client? So like
Mm-hmm.
somebody inquires, what's the email you're sending? And write it down. And
Mm-hmm.
then what is going to be your follow up? How soon are you going to follow up? What's that follow up email look like? Like, write out all these things or type them out, but basically don't put them into a system right away. That's the number one mistake I see by photographers is they try
Okay.
to take everything that they do and shove it into a system and they try to make it fit into there. And then it's not really their system anymore because they've changed and compromised it in all different kinds of ways. So
Mm-hmm.
instead, write it down and then get your whole big picture of it and then see how can it fit into your system. And
Mm-hmm.
some things might fit in really well and other things you might need to make some adjustments for. But that way
Mm-hmm.
you're much more prepared and you understand the limitations and the advantages of putting them into that system then.
Should
So
this be,
sometimes old school's
yeah.
best.
Yeah, no, 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 that's great. Should this be your ideal workflow for each client, or should this be what you're currently doing?
That's a good question. I mean, really, I mean, we all update things as we go,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. But I know sometimes if we're in the midst of wedding season, we will wait till the next wedding season. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I also say, like, for me, I literally have a Google document where I have my entire workflow out. Like, guys, it's like 20 freaking pages. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But in there, basically, if I put something new in, I'll like highlight a different color. And that way I know that I need to put it into my system at some point. So
Mm-hmm.
there's ways to kind of keep it current, but then kind of make notes of like, okay, I need to add this in later at this point. I'm too busy with things right now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you're currently using the system, you're in the midst of wedding season, don't try to make changes right now. It's probably going to be a little
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming. But if you can, I mean, hey, that's always going to be the best idea, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and
So,
one thing you mentioned earlier in that process of talking about a CRM is I think a lot of times people start and they might have one or two weddings for the year and they're like, I don't need a CRM. I can handle these two. And then the next year they have six weddings and then so and so forth. And it
mhm.
balloons. And before they know it, they're still trying to manage things the old way because they never, implemented a CRM to begin with and they get in over their head. Early on in my career, I double booked a wedding because I did not have a CRM.
Oh, yep, yep.
And
Those are
and
those
I,
little
it
things
all
that,
worked out. It was all good. Like we dealt with it. Client was happy, but not good. Like that's what you're running the risk of. Is you're running the risk of screwing up and making yourself look really bad in front of your clients. So CRM
yeah,
save the
and
butt there.
yeah, they're really affordable options. And even if you don't, at the very least, at least have email templates that you use.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep them in notes. You can keep them in Gmail. There's different ways that you can store them. But like, I'm just amazed at how many photographers are still like manually writing out emails, and then
Yeah.
they'll tell one client one thing, and they'll tell another client something else. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, this is where we start running into issues because you don't remember what you told to who,
Yeah.
and that's when those little complications come up, and that's never a good look at all
Right.
for you, and it puts the clients in awkward positions because your contract says one thing, you emailed them something else, and then something else is something else. It's you just got to be able to stay on top of that, keep everything in one place,
Mm-hmm.
and be really consistent in your communications with people.
Right. Cool.
All right, number two, or do you want to touch on anything else with CRMs
No,
there?
that's perfect. Get a CRM,
All right.
guys.
Yes. Post production. This is, I feel like it's the bane of every photographer's existence. I
Mm.
mean, I don't know about you guys. I mean, it's like, hey, I took great photos and shit, I got to edit them.
Right.
This is, for most people, it's probably the least favorite part. We love to edit a
Mm-hmm.
photo or two and then we kind of just fall off on the rest. And then we go, crap, there's a deadline approaching. And you kind of crank through it, you push it out, and we keep rinsing and repeating.
Mm-hmm.
We can't keep doing that. That's how we lead to burnout. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
like, I hear so many photographers say in the fall when they're the busiest, like, oh my gosh, I'm just so swamped. I got a backlog of
Right.
all this. And I'm like, you've had 11 weeks to touch that wedding and you're telling me you haven't touched it. Like what's
Right.
going on here? So there's a few different things I think that can really speed things up. So number one is whenever you're heading into a new wedding season is kind of taking a look at how old are your cards that you're using in your cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Most cards I'd say can, be a couple years, maybe a few years. It just kind of depends,
Mm-hmm.
but make sure they're not having errors on them and maybe consider buying faster cards. Sometimes I see people are still using like 95 megabyte a second cards. And I'm like, your import times you could literally cut into like a third by
Mm-hmm.
buying some faster cards. And it's a really simple, easy thing to do. Like, I don't know about you guys, when I get home, I import and back up everything. But like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
exhausted. I don't want to spend much time up at night dealing with all of that. So I went out and purchased 300 megabyte second cards. And they are super fast to shoot on and super fast when it comes to the import. And
Mm-hmm.
I timed the difference there, and literally like it could save me like 30 to 45 minutes. And when
Mm-hmm.
it's 1 a.m. and I'm exhausted after a wedding day, after 30 to 45 minutes of extra
Heck
sleep,
yeah.
like I am all about that. So,
Mm-hmm.
take a look at your cards, see if you can update those, gain back a little bit of speed there.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is having templated folders and catalogs. So I have a templated folder that I keep on my computer that says like engagement template, wedding template, portrait template. And basically it has the whole file structure set up. So like I have an album folder, I have a raw folder, I have a digital file folder, I have a slideshow folder. So like all of these are already set up. And that way I simply copy the template folder and I rename it to whatever the shoot was. It's that simple. So that way I'm not recreating things. I don't have to think and make sure I'm doing it. It's simply just copy that folder over, rename it, and I'm ready to go. And it might not seem like much, but if you save a minute or two off of every single shoot, that really starts
Mm-hmm.
to add up. And it also ensures that my files are getting where they need to be.
And you
I
do
do the
that at the
same.
shoot. You don't do that when you book the client.
You could do it then. It really just depends
Okay.
on your workflow. I know
Yeah.
some people like just set it up for the whole year, and you could do that. You could literally set up all
Yeah.
your file folders for the year and then just do it. So it's really just personal preference there. But
That's
either
good.
way,
I
it's
like
going to
that.
save you a ton of time and stay more organized. And then I
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing with my Lightroom catalogs. I have basically different little collection sets of like, getting ready, portraits, reception, all of these things. And that way they're already set up and I don't need to go through and recreate those each and every time. And then I have my smart collections also like automatically set in there. So like if I set it for a 3-star, it's just going to go on my blog post. Little
Mm-hmm.
things like that of not having to redo that each and every time. Like guys, it might not seem like much, but these are,
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And when you're shooting 30, 40 weddings a year, all of a sudden we're talking about hours and hours and hours of your time
Mm-hmm.
back. Also, just ensuring that all of your systems continuously flow from one thing to the next without you being like, did I do that part? Or, ooh, did I make that folder? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
That helps prevent all these things. So,
Mm-hmm.
using some basic templates is going to be huge.
That's cool.
When it comes to culling, obviously there's Aftershoot, which is a really
Mm-hmm.
popular one these days. You can stick with good old Photomechanic or Lightroom too if you want. I actually became a big fan of Narrative lately. Narrative
Okay.
Select, I feel like it's not talked about very much, but I've become a big fan of them. But basically, like use something, whatever works for you, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're expediting your culling process. Um, you know, I just see too many people sit on it for too long. So like my goal is to basically have it culled within a week. And that way I can then get it uploaded to Imagine AI. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, hopefully, if you guys haven't tried out Imagine yet, will blow your mind. But basically like using these new softwares, like AI has now become a complete game changer in our industry,
Mm-hmm. It
and has
is.
sped up our workflows. And it's just like it's not perfect, and it's not going to do every little thing for you perfectly. But will it save you time? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear so many people say, "Well, I don't have the time to do this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you're losing more time by
Right.
continuing to do it the way that you're currently doing it."
Right.
So yes, CRMs, they take time to set up front, but they save you so much time on the back end. This is
Mm-hmm.
the same exact thing. Like if you invest time, you will buy back your time in the future,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to commit to doing it right now. And that future payoff, you might not understand when it's going to come, but it's truly, truly worth it in the long run. So
Mm-hmm.
using some of those systems, And yeah, I don't know. The big thing I always see with photographers and editing due dates and all of that is uh, Parkinson's law. If you guys are not familiar with it, it basically says that whatever you give the amount of time to, it will essentially take. So if
Hmm.
you say like, oh, well, my due date for this wedding is 8 weeks from now, you are literally going to wait 8 weeks to get that done.
Right.
So if you start changing your mindset and changing due dates and say, no, what? No, I'm going to get this culled and edited within 4 weeks. Amazingly enough, you will usually find a way to get it done within that time frame then.
Right.
So you got to switch up your mindset on that sometimes in order to make sure that things are getting a little bit more efficient there.
Yeah. And
And then,
keep telling your couples 8 weeks,
yes,
and then when you deliver at
blow them
3,
away.
yeah, they'll love it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they lose their
Absolutely.
mind. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you cut the time in half. That was amazing." And
Hmm.
again, it's you buy yourself the time, and if it happens to take 8 weeks, it happens to take 8 weeks. That's sometimes okay. We've all
Hmm.
been there. We've all gone through that. But set yourself up for success, and that way you can exceed expectations. Because let's be real,
Right.
if we meet expectations, in some ways we kind of failed. Think about it. Like if you expect something on a certain date and it comes on that exact date, you're like, okay, nice. But if
Hmm.
something shows up early, you're like, oh, that's awesome. Like
Right.
that's such a nice little perk and bonus. So just think
Yeah.
about how you like to be treated as well as a consumer.
Right.
And then the biggest thing is just within Lightroom is using the rating systems to make things more efficient. So like I use the smart collections to kind of group things together. I use it to make sure I'm starring certain photos that I want to put in their slideshow, in their album, in the blog post. And all these things are just set up, and that way I can easily pull things and integrate them into wherever I need to go. So like
Hmm.
once I export the files in Fundy, I can go, okay, I'm going to pull in all the 2-star photos. That's going to go in their album. 3-star photos are going to go in their blog post, and then I'm going to upload all the 3-star photos to Planoly, and that's going to be all my Instagram stuff then.
Hmm.
So think about ways that you can kind of use some of your current tools to
Hmm.
integrate into other systems, and that way they all kind of talk to each other and make all of your workflow really seamless so that you're not repeating things. Like I
Right.
see so many people say, I don't know what to post on Instagram. I mean, let's just jump into number 3 right here.
Yeah.
um, Planoly is my choice. There's a million things out there. There's free things out there, but like have a freaking folder of photos that you want to share with the world.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we all have. We're photographers. We have so much content. We have so much content,
Hmm.
but organizing it, I feel like, is the big issue that I constantly see. And so just make a folder and throw everything in there that you want to share out. For me, I just upload it to Planoly. And what I do is I go to my blog post folder that was within my template there, and all my 3-star photos from Lightroom were exported there. And I just take all of them and I drop them in Planoly. And I upload them all there. And then I just go, oh, cool. You know what? Today I want to feel like sharing this portrait. Next day I'll share this moment here. And I
Hmm.
have literally a library right now of, I think, 150 photos. Like I have no lack of content,
Right.
and I can easily just scroll through and view it and just be like, share that one. Because
Hmm.
what I typically see is most people go, they open up, Instagram, they grab their phone and go, what do I want to share today? No, not that one.
Yeah.
Not that one. Nope. And they just kind of keep looking through and just sitting there, like.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening? You do the doom scroll, and next thing you
Hmm.
know, you're like 30 minutes later, you're like, shit, I didn't even pick out a photo.
Right.
I just wasted all this time, and yeah, no, I'm not even gonna post. Forget it.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
did
And then you're
that.
doing
Like
it at
I,
different times every day, and nobody can count on when you're doing it
there's
or
no
what day you're doing it.
consistency.
Totally.
Nope.
Totally.
And so
Yeah.
just have something like make a Google Drive folder. Like that's free. Like toss stuff in there
Hmm.
and just have things easily accessible. That's the number one thing you can do is just make things easily accessible. Don't make it so that you need to go scroll through the 1,000+ photos that you delivered to the couple, because
Hmm.
that's completely overwhelming and unrealistic to expect you to go through all of them and find the ones that you want. So set yourself up for success early by using the Lightroom tools to kind of organize things. Then when you export, all these things will kind of talk to one another and they'll set you up for more success when it comes to all of that.
Hmm.
So, and then my favorite thing is when it comes to tagging and hashtags and all that. If you're on an Apple device, I love the keyboard shortcuts. So where meaning like you can type in a certain word or phrase, and then it will basically auto-complete to whatever you want it to do. So like
Mm-hmm.
I set it up for the couple's wedding date. So like, let's say if I use today's date, it'd be 2022 period 08 period 25. And if I type that and then press space or enter, it's going to automatically populate all the vendors and the hashtags for that wedding date. So
From
literally,
where?
it's in your settings. So if you're on an Apple device, you go to System Preferences, and then you
Okay.
go to your keyboard, and then you go to Text, and then there's this whole little window here. And all you do is you add in the new one. You want to say replace. So you pick your replacement text. So you type in, I use dates, and then it's going to replace it then with whatever you want to go in there. So like it'll be the venue, the planner, the DJ, all this. So there's no need to memorize things. There's no need to copy and paste. It's literally you type in a date, it automatically fills everything out for you just like that.
Dude, I never
Did you
knew
not know
that.
that?
I did not know that. I'm going to have to rewatch this so that I can actually listen to what you just said, because I opened up system preference and I was like, what am I doing? That's awesome.
Yeah. So as a quick
That's
refresh, just to
helpful.
make sure it's clear. So system preferences,
Yeah.
then you go to keyboard,
Yep.
and then you'll go to at the top, there should be a bunch of different options. So there's keyboard, and
Shortcuts.
then for me, text is the second one. So if you go to
Yep.
text there, and then you'll see there's basically kind of a table on the left side if you have something in there, maybe you don't. And then
Yeah.
basically you just use the add icon down there. And then
Yeah.
you put in basically whatever it is you want to replace. So for me, that's where I put in the date. And then with is where you're going to put the info for the different vendors and the hashtags. So that way, there's no memorization, there's no trying to copy and paste. It's literally you type it in, auto populates, done.
Guys, Scott Josuweit. No, if you don't come away with anything else, dude, that's awesome. I
Please
never knew
take
that.
that away
So
at least.
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just there's these little things that like, yeah, these take time to set up. Like I literally have like 170 weddings that I input into my system like that. But
Hmm.
you better believe now that anytime I want to post anything from any wedding, I don't need to go searching through for anything. I just got to go, oh, what was that wedding date? Oh, that wedding date, boom, right there. Cool. I'll type it in, automatically enters everything, and I'm good to go.
Hmm. And
So
then like you do
again,
anniversary posts a lot, so it's easier to be able to
it's
do that. You don't
huge for
have to.
that. It's
Yeah.
huge. People are just like, oh, I don't want to share any of my old work because like I don't remember. I got to like remember all these people I worked with and all that. I'm just like, you don't need to. Like you simply just put in the wedding date and it's all good to go and right there. And the biggest thing is that I don't think people understand is on Instagram, it's a social media, which means that you need to be social, meaning that if you tag other people, they're more likely to share your work as well. Like
Hmm.
feel like a common misconception is that like I should just be able to post my work and people should love it. Like that was the
Hmm.
old Instagram. Like you could be found and everything would just pop up and go bananas and you get hundreds of likes without issue. But nowadays it's more about like interacting and other people sharing out their work, you sharing out their work. That's how you get more people to like look at your work.
Hmm.
So you do that, then it's a really, really great way to kind of recycle through people that maybe you worked with a long time ago, but you haven't seen in a while. So
Hmm.
I'm like, you know what? I haven't gotten anything from that planner in a while. So you know what? I'm gonna get back to this wedding we worked together on. I'm gonna like do a whole week of like sharing out all these photos from them. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the planner at one point is going to be like, oh my gosh, thanks so much. They're going to share out your work. And it will be kind of an open door then of way to kind of like be like, hey, it's been a while. Could we like reconnect and like try to work together again on something?
Hmm.
So like these are ways that actually, if you really think about it and you use some strategy behind things, you can really form some great connections or reconnect with people that you maybe lost touch with there.
Right. No, that's helpful. So when you use the keyboard shortcuts, can
Mhm.
you make it like so you have all your hashtags and stuff, but can you actually have it so that it tags people when you actually copy and paste? Or do you have to then like do the at thing? And you can tell I
So
don't do anything with
basically,
Instagram, so
yeah. So it will tag them in the description, so they will be notified in that sense.
okay.
I like Planoly because basically it will actually tag them on the photo. And so I'm
Okay,
Planoly, I have tags also set up for all the vendors in there as well.
gotcha.
So basically I'm tagging them in the description and I'm tagging them on the photo itself. Because if people search for a vendor and then they go to the tagged option under photos, they can also see everything that other people are tagging them in there. So
Gotcha.
that's another way to get seen by more people if you're tagging all these vendors, specifically like planners. I know a lot of couples do that where they'll kind of like some planners only kind of prefer to share a specific style of photo. Like maybe they like the more light and airy look and you're more of a dark and moody. Well, if you are tagging that planner on all the photos as well, well, if let's say a prospective couple goes to that planner's Instagram profile, they click on the tagged, by other people then, and you tag that planner there, they're going to see your photos showing up in the feed. Even though the planner is not tagging you on their profile
Hmm.
stuff, you can still show up in their feed in a way. So it's a way to kind of circumvent all of that and
Hmm.
also get your eyes in front of, kind of audiences that you would not normally have access to otherwise. So
Yeah,
that's what I
that's
always
great.
say. It's worth putting in a little bit of time to get organized and set it up because once it is, I basically take 2 minutes for every wedding to do all of this. 2 minutes,
Yeah,
I put it into the system, and I'm literally set for a lifetime of being able to share out those photos. It's worth it.
yeah, that's great. So, jumping back to the Lightroom thing real quick, one of the things that I think
Yeah.
people get psyched out about with Lightroom and tagging things and colors and all that is the most important thing is to have a system consistent for all of your shoots. Don't
Yep.
do blue label for your final for this wedding and green for the next one. I use color labels for mine. So when I go through and call, anything that I'm gonna edit is gonna get red, and everything that's not gonna get edited doesn't get tagged. So that's what I do. And then when I go
Okay.
through and edit, I change it to blue. Anything that I'm going to deliver to the client is going to be at minimum blue. Anything that's a
Hmm.
blog post is green. Anything that is portfolio going on my website permanently is purple. So if I want to go to the cream of the crop of my images, I go to the purple, and I can see everybody's because I use master catalogs, and I can see
Hmm.
everything, from the last whenever 15
Yep.
years if I want to, and so on and so forth. At the end of the year, I can go through all the purples and all the greens and see what I want to do for my year-end blog post. Have a system. It doesn't have to be, stars or thumbs up, thumbs down, flag in, whatever. Just figure out what works for your workflow, and do
It's
that.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally you're spending and well, you're wasting so much time by actually not taking the time to use the rating systems within
Hmm.
Lightroom before you
Right.
export your photos. Because then later
Right.
on, you are literally left to just basically go through the files one by one, trying to figure out,
Yeah.
everything. And it's just not practical at all.
No.
So,
No. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. I learned
of
something new,
course,
and that was helpful. I'm gonna,
that makes me happy. That makes me
yeah,
so happy to teach you something
yeah.
new.
So you do coaching for photographers. You have your group that you have. Tell us about the group first, then we'll dive into the coaching if people are interested.
Sure. So I have a free Facebook group. I know another Facebook group, right? But I try to make it worth your while. I go live literally every single week, whether it's breaking down how I shot and edited something, whether it's talking about my systems. Like I did a whole breakdown of my entire workflow for how I post on Instagram, even more detailed than what I went into today. There's basically just lots of good content in there. It's all totally free. There's no catch or anything like that. You can go view it all right now. You can ask questions in there. It's basically just trying to help you guys level up your business in a way that maybe you haven't really thought about before. So that's totally free. And then, of course, I do one-on-one coaching. I'll be starting up some group coaching fairly soon. And then I have a workshop next month. So there's kind of all different types of levels and ways that I can work with you. And essentially, it kind of just starts with looking at like, what are the things you're currently using? What are things you've been kind of considering using, kind of doing analysis of your business, and then just really kind of working through like, where do you want to go? What are we struggling with? What's something you're trying to learn? And working through that together to make sure that we're not just implementing things, we're building out systems that will be able to be replicated time and time again. And in the end, will end up saving you a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
money, and just make your life a lot easier and more enjoyable. Because let's be
Yeah.
real, we all got into this because we like to take photos. I don't know too many people that love the business, except for I think two of us enjoy the business side as well. But yeah, I mean, it's just basically there to help you guys out in whatever way I possibly can.
Yeah. What's the name of the Facebook group again?
Yeah, it's a Purpose and Process Mastermind. On Instagram, it's Purpose and Process, and then the website is purposeandprocess.co.
Cool.
I
Nice.
didn't
And
get the
tell us a little
.com.
about the workshop coming up. Is there
Oh,
availability
yeah,
for that?
there is still. So it
Awesome.
will be in York, Pennsylvania, my hometown here, and basically, I'll give you guys the full scoop. It's really 3 days in person, but there's a virtual fourth day as well. It's the cheapest it will ever be. It is literally 50% of what I will be charging in the future. So it's literally $900 for 4 days of full packed education. So it's going to be 2 days of shooting. So literally deconstructions, talking you through how I do it, the gear, all of that. The second day is all hands-on shooting. So I will be right there by your side, showing you how to do it, and then you working on it with me literally helping tweak it and talk through the whole process the entire time that you're there. Day 3 is all marketing, sales, post-production, all of that stuff. And then there'll be a virtual fourth day as well, where I'll do website critiques, image critiques for people, just kind of tying up some of those little loose ends of things that we can't cover there. But yeah, it's jam packed. I still have spots
Awesome.
left. And again, it's the cheapest it'll ever be.
So day two shooting, is it, around town? Is it a fake wedding? What's the shooting setup?
So this might get me in trouble. I'm just going to say it though, because it's truly how I feel. So many photography workshops, they take place in these amazing, stunning locations.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real. Many of us do not live in these spots. Many of us do not shoot in these spots. And therefore, I feel like it's very impractical to take workshops and have these photos of, that are stunning, sure, but they don't fit at all
Mountains
with the
and
area that you're
yeah.
in. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, you went to Denver, Colorado and you had this amazing vistascape, but you live in
Yeah.
York, PA. It doesn't add up. Like,
Right.
it's not going to speak to your clients at all. They're going to be like, yeah, we don't live there.
Yeah.
So it's literally at a photography studio. It's a grungy old industrial space. And the reason why is because the workshops that I've grown the most were the ones that were challenging, where it's like, hey, look, here's this really basic space that's kind of difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work through the process of making good photos in tough spaces, because we've all had that happen before. You're shoved into a back corner of a venue. Somebody's getting ready in a bathroom.
Yeah.
Like these are tough
Church basement with
situations.
like four different color temperature lights. Yeah. What do you do? Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, we don't want to practice on the wedding day itself. That's a nightmare, because that's the high pressure. That's where if you mess it up, you're going to pay for that later. So why not be able to practice through these tough scenarios in a situation that's safe, where you can have somebody help you work through all of that? So
Mm-hmm.
that'll be the main part. But then we will also do, hopefully, as the weather cooperates, an outdoor component as well, to show you, like, here's on location, here's how to do natural light, flash,
Mm-hmm.
posing, literally every little thing. I'll show you, literally, here's the first step of what I do to the very last step, and show you how to edit it all as well.
Awesome. Cool. Scott, thanks for joining us today. It was a pleasure hanging out for a little bit. Let's grab a beer sometime
Absolutely.
and uh,
Yes.
yeah, go from there. Cool.
Well, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Happy shooting this weekend. I'm sure a lot of you are shooting, but implement these strategies that Scott talked about, and you'll be in a better spot afterwards. I know that I am for learning some tips and tricks. And listen, I hate Instagram more than anybody. I don't go into it, but I learned a better way to manage that faster moving forward. So thanks again, Scott, and
Now
have a
you
great
have to
day.
post on Instagram on a regular basis.
So I use Hero Post, and it has a lot of the same tools, I'm sure, as Planoly, but for Shoot With Me, our social person uses Planoly, so
Gotcha.
I'm a little familiar with it. But yeah, dude, thank you for hanging.
Of
Have a
course.
great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, man. You too.
See ya. Take care.
See ya.